Oh, all right. We're off to the races. How you feeling?
Good.
Yeah.
Finally, got through that 8K hump.
Yep, I saw.
So that was quite a journey.
A lot of work. Were you
A lot
maining
of
the
work.
Kanna like throughout that, or was it mainly like a funding character?
Yeah, it was mainly. I never really intended the Kanna to be a main, but you know how it happens. It just becomes the
Yep.
farmer main. So I got it up decently high enough just so I can fund the rest of the characters getting to 200. Um, and I don't think it's a bad class. As much stigma as there is, behind the Kanna.
Well, the
Um,
stigma is mainly because it's too good.
exactly, yeah. But yeah, exactly. That's the thing. But with
Yeah.
Kishin gone, maybe that'll lower temperatures a little bit.
Hopefully, we don't know what else they're doing to the class, right? I'm
Yeah, true.
kind of scared they might
True.
give it some crazy buffs. I mean, and even considering that, I mean, they're just on the same level now as everyone else when it comes to increased spawn time. But then
Right.
together with that, they're getting the extra 10% EXP, which tilts that a little bit in their favor. And because of reliance on summons in general, that has a lot of benefit in the end game. So it is very possible that they will still be seen as I paused it accidentally. Seen as, very favorable classes, depending on what's going to happen with them in the Destiny update. Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Apparently, in Maple
Right.
Sea, they're just holding off on that for an entire month.
I mean, if they nerf it too much right away, there's gonna be a bunch of pissed off people because so many people, have Kannas,
Yeah,
at least as a farmer. So
yeah, it's kind of unavoidable. That's why it took them like 5 years to get rid of the Kishin spawn in Hansing, slowly but surely nerfing it every year and a half or something, just to try to cut it down. To wean people off, they basically implemented it to try to get everyone back into the game, then get everyone dependent on it, and then wean everyone off again.
well, it's kind of working. I mean, it's not the best plan, but it's working.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, who's to know what would have happened with the game if they didn't do that, right? Who's
Yeah,
to know
true.
if he would still be here?
Yeah, you gotta hope that it's for the good,
Yep.
But yeah, I'm still hoping to have it be a bossing meal at the very least. I'm not just gonna let it go to waste. So, but yeah, so it's a pseudo main. But now that the AK is done, that was my first and main kind of goal. I kind of put everything off aside just to get that foundation laid out. Now I can actually finally start having some fun with the game, hopefully, and
Fully going South Park episode.
Actually start it. Yeah.
Now we play the game. Yeah.
Yep. So I think my first kind of big question is like it's picking a main. I'm between I think maybe 3 classes right now. Maybe you can even help me out.
Sure.
I'm between Iran, which was kind of my first love after I think it was after Big Bang, right? That Iran came out or somewhere around there.
Remember when it was exactly Big Bang? If it was before Big Bang, it couldn't have been too much before. Yeah. I remember the old going for the Crimson Arcglaive and trying to, back when it was a guy in the storyline, right?
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So I remember playing it way back then. I'm like, oh, I really like this class, and then I stopped playing like everybody else, I think. Yeah, I think Ron was like maybe a little bit before the Big Bang.
Yeah, Kobe said a year. I trust him on the encyclopedia memory there.
Yeah, that seems about right. But yeah, so I remember playing that class. I came back to it, when I came back to playing this a few years ago. And I just really like the movement of it. I really like the mobility. It's pretty strong for the most part. It's got the whole combo. I really like combo classes too.
Okay.
So that's definitely like almost like a must. Just having fun playing it. So Iran is definitely one of my top choices. I'm also thinking about maybe like Kadena. I know it's a pretty tricky class from what I've heard to play, especially to boss with. Your positioning has to be really, spot on. So I'm gonna try that one out too, and maybe Ho Young as well. Those are the 3 I'm kind of going back and forth on. But that kind of leads me to my next thing is I think one of my goals now is to actually get into bossing. I haven't actually done much of bossing at all.
Yeah, you don't really get access to it. You can do like some horntails and some normal Hillots,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
that doesn't really count.
Yeah, so it's I got the Zackum down, I got the Horntail, but I want to actually get into the actual bosses of the game.
Yeah.
So I figured after 8K, I got no more excuse. I can finally start getting into a character and start whipping those out. But yeah, so I don't know if what you think would be better for like bossing. I know that Kadeena's pretty good. I know the Ron's solid, but I don't know if you have any opinions on that.
Yeah, we're getting towards a point where basically I think all the classes are doable. If you have specifically a more support type character, then for most bosses, especially if you're soloing, it's going to take a little bit longer to catch steam, which is, I think correct. I think it should be if a character adds a lot to a party, then I think they should be a little bit harder to solo boss with. Kanna was very interesting to play. For me, just a little bit on the edge of like too much input and stuff going on. But
it is a lot, yeah.
Yeah, but it seems like a character that does heavily reward you for playing it properly. There are some other classes, and they're working on them now, of course. But yeah, things to come to mind like Blaster and Kinesis and possibly Mercedes, like where the key inputs and the combo heaviness is there, but it doesn't seem like you're getting quite rewarded for it as much as I feel like you should. And it seems like Kanna is at that point where, yeah, it's like work hard, play hard, but like there's a lot of bang for your buck in there eventually. Probably one of the highest DPM characters as a result. Not super burst heavy, so that might not be exactly where you want it. If you're like measuring ticks when it comes to battle analysis or something, Kanna might not be like the number one on there. But like the longer the BA goes, the more you'll see that the Kanna actually ends up scoring quite nicely there.
Yeah.
Eren seems to have just very solid, high hitting base attacks. You have lifesteal in your kit, which comes into play in some situations and can help quite a bit. Like in black mage situations and stuff like that, like the further you go. And I think the fact that they got their own bind in their kit now, that I think that rounded them out quite a lot compared to where they were before. You've got high IED in the kit, you've got some knockdown resistance with the Fenrir crash and stuff. I've heard like the downside that locks you in place a little bit. I believe they're working on the end lag on those skills to make sure that you don't get locked in place as much anymore. But yeah, the versatility with like the dashing and all the types of skills and always finding something. That I guess that's the main theme for these characters, that there's going to be a lot of situations where you will find something useful that you can actually do in that specific situation where other classes don't really have an answer. They either have to preemptively iframe or position themselves perfectly, but then you might have like one or two skills where the combination might just position you perfectly to where you can use that as in terms of your survivability or in terms of increasing your damage by taking more risk, because it'll be less of a risk for you because you have a solution, you have an out, and other classes have to like push the panic button because they can't have anything to do. Eren seems the problem for Eren, I think, seems to be that the only real iframe I think that you have is also your biggest burst damage skill. So that's, I think, their main hang up. So the main thing is there that you have to be like on all the time, and that the positioning is super important, and the preemptive positioning. Kanna's iframe, I believe, is moving from one skill to another to give it more utility, but they like essentially also aren't really high on the iframes, right? That right now their only iframe is their bind as well, so that's like in a weird situation. And the other one, Ho Young, of course, when it comes to iframes, like is pretty much king. It's still getting nerfed because it's still that good.
Yeah.
And also has a lot of solutions for a lot of situations, and has, I think, a little bit more the ability to be either very high key input or very low key input. If you're very strong, you can be, I don't know to which extent Eren can do this, but like later on in the game, Ho Young's, get a lot of damage from those particle effects flying around, which Kanna and Eren do not have. So Ho Young does get on speed with that, and they have that summon, that vortex, in the same way that the Kanna kind of has that vortex that they can put down. However, the Ho Young one lasts way longer. So it seems like Ho Young has a better answer for more situations in the game. And is not as it has a learning curve as well, of course, you know, managing your points, but it seems like I would say like Ho Young is probably like higher survivability and more burst heavy version, where Kadena is like slightly, you know, more risky but more DPM oriented version. And then Aaron, I think, is just like more moderately solid all throughout and doesn't really have any big peaks, but probably like the lack of like a confirmable iframe. Yeah, only having. I'm thinking of if they were adding an iframe or something to Aaron, because you have your Freuds, right? But that's like a huge setup. Have you played Aaron with Freuds before?
Say that again?
Freud's, what is it? Freud's Blessing or something?
For Iran?
Yeah.
Yeah, what is it called? I'm not on the Iran right now. It's something like that.
Yeah, we have to stack it like 5 times, and then you get...
Yeah.
Like, so, like, for some bosses, so if you're strong enough, you know, you can stack it before going in, and then basically just iframe the whole boss fight. So that's cool, but on the very long boss fights, obviously, that's going to be a pain to set up, plus you're not going to be able to do all that much with it. You know, you're going into Black Mage, maybe you just iframe phase 1, and then maybe you stack it in phase 3 somewhere. But, yeah, it might be... It's not super reliable, right? Like, you technically have 2 iframes, one takes forever to set up, and the other one is your burst. So that's... Yeah, that's probably their major downside, I think.
Okay. So every class got a give and take, obviously. So
yeah,
it's,
exactly.
It's about kind of experimenting around with it. I am like super like kind of new to bossing. I haven't really done anything at all. So like, what do you suggest kind of starting out with, and how would you suggest starting out?
So, well, in general, I would say, you know, like, do what you enjoy. It seems like you like playing different characters.
Yeah, no, I do.
That seems pretty obvious. Yeah, looking at this
Yeah.
giant board of characters leveled up, so that's a good start. And it looks
unless
like
I like torturing myself, it's one of those, right?
Well, I mean, we're all playing MapleStory, so on some level,
That's
we're
true.
okay with that. Yeah.
We all do like that. Yeah.
I guess you're still slowly working on some 210s for like level 3 links, right? So you're not completely...
I only need a few more, actually.
Yeah, it seems like you're pretty close to getting all of them done.
Luminous is pretty much there. I just have to give the potions from this event. And the only other one really is Angelic Buster that I need to get to 210. Because Mihail, you're not going to need it, right?
Yeah, well, not as a mandatory link skill anymore, no. I'm struggling to see the uses for the new link skill as well. It seems a bit... It seems too situational for anyone to really use it.
Yeah, so I'm like, I don't even know if I... Like, maybe if I get some event potions, like, later on, I'll bring it up, but now, I think that's the only one I'll be missing, except for Angelic Buster, but yeah, most of them are there.
I guess on that note, with the Legion already being this big, what are you planning to do with the Destiny stuff that we have available?
Well, in what sense? What Destiny stuff?
Well, all of the rewards that you can get, right, for the Mega Burning, sorry, not Mega Burning, but like Terra Burning, Terra Burninators, New Explorer, Creation, all that stuff. Are you planning to kind of, you know, maybe not rely on that too much then, or?
Oh, I mean, I'll definitely still take advantage of it, because it is this patch that you're going to get the 2 extra characters in the Legion board, right? The 42.
No, that's probably gonna be later.
Later? Okay, well, still, like,
yeah, it's now in Korea, so probably about 4.5 months away. That's usually like the delay, so that's more like a, what is it, October kind of thing.
Okay, that's not too bad though. Are we getting? So we're getting 2 Terra Burns and 2 Terra Burninators. Is that correct?
Yeah, from what I can tell from the KMS patch notes, yeah. And then extra bonus rewards if at least one of the new characters you create is a explorer.
Okay. I mean, I probably do have some things that I could do. I was thinking about making a Corsair just to, you know, get it in there at the buff duration. I was thinking of something else, maybe my Paladin. At this point, there's not too many other characters like I feel like I need to.
Yeah, it's
get
just
up
kind of
there.
just to get. Oh yeah, because you have 40, yeah. So there's still a few classes that you don't have yet, so you'll just mostly circle around those. And if there's anything,
like whatever,
like if because there is a good rewards all the way up to 220, right? At least for one of the Terra Burns. So I don't know if you've if you've been thinking about, like, besides like having a main, but also like maybe like on the side, like some bossing mules or stuff. I don't know how much you're playing that kind of thing. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I was gonna say that too. I do want to have a few bossing mules on the side as like an end goal, with the Kanna being one of them, and then maybe a couple more, depending, you know. you know, just because, like you said, I do like playing different kits and different characters, kind of getting into different. I get too bored doing one thing at, you know, too long, so
Yep.
I gotta always switch it up a little bit. But yeah, just a few bossing meals. So yeah, I was thinking of maybe getting a bossing meal up there to 220 and getting some rewards out of that too.
Yep. So that's a good idea. There'd be 2, if you take advantage of everything, also 2 like fake Absolab weapons, which I think are really good for bossing mules. Like, they're not the best they could be, obviously, but they're basically free, and they're very tightly packed into that slot where you want that character to be anyway. So that can take all of the possible investments and questions of like how far should I take everything out of the equation. All you need is an okay flame, and you're kind of done with the most important piece of the character. So.
Yeah, no, true. So yeah, so I am planning on doing something. I just don't know 100% right now. Still kind of feeling it out. It's gonna depend on who my main is, and you know, other things like that. But what's the Explorer thing? The Explorer class remaking the Destiny thing. What do you get from that?
God, where's my PowerPoint presentation here?
I know you get some rewards, right?
Yeah, there's this thing. Boom. What is this? Oh, so there's a Terra Burning booster, like one of the 3 event rings vouchers. So like the 3 strong ones.
Yep.
Expansion coupons, character slot expansion, pennant expansion, and then all of this stuff as well. So this is like a title that helps you. These are trait boost potions, if I remember correctly. EXP coupon box, nodes and symbols, EXP node, more nodes and symbols, more EXP node, and then a box, and then the box has this stuff in it. So has 200 more symbol vouchers in it, and then the weapon box, and then a unique emblem on top of it, so you can have 2 emblems, which is kind of nice because then you can just mass red cube on the side without having to, you know, black cube if you have something that you don't want to lose. And 20k Maple points. Yeah, the 20k Maple points is supposed to be the thing that basically helps you pay for the season pass that's going on, so you can double up on the rewards there.
Oh, nice. I didn't even know that there was a season pass.
Yep. Yeah, that video needs to go out pronto, but I've been keep postponing it. But yeah, there's like a whole list of stuff that's in the... don't know if I took that screenshot because there was just so much stuff, but let's see, do I have it here? Oh yeah, Battle Pass, whatever I call it. That's stuff like, like extreme growth potions, symbol voucher, like a selective symbol voucher, so you know, like the big amounts, 3 experience nodes, another event ring voucher, selective growth potion voucher, 100% unique potential scroll, one of those skin vouchers, and a maximum growth potion voucher, like to level up all the way up to 250. And if you season pass, then you can double up, so you can get everything twice.
Oh wow! Oh shit! Nice.
Yeah. So and then
really
yeah, KMS got really pissed that was costing an X, or like Maple points, and they were like, well, you have to like this is kind of the whole pay to win thing. They didn't like it, so then they just added the Maple points to the reward for the new explorers, so like everyone can basically get it if they participate in the event. So
okay, all right, that's not a horrible sort of compromise.
Yeah, apparently in Maple C they made it a little bit more expensive or something, so people are already like doom prepping us for like, what if it costs 2k more? Yeah.
Oh,
I think we'll live. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we'll be fine. Okay, cool. Yeah, so I'll have to start getting my ducks in a row about the Destiny update. I do know that I want to get the mages up to 200 after that, because yeah, they're just especially fire poison mage to try to mob up to 200 is not fun. So
yeah, right now it's probably one of the least exciting ones, I would say. I think there are some maps where the hitboxes for the skills actually map on quite nicely to the fire poison hitboxes, but you have to get to that area first, and then I think it gets okay. But also I did fire poison pretty late, you know, it's when you look at the Legion and Links priority list that I have, right, it's quite low on there. So by the time you get there, you already have a lot of Legion and Links working for you, so that's part of the reason why it's also not that bad, I think. If you would start with a fire poison with absolutely nothing going on, probably be kind of brutal.
Yeah, maybe I haven't given it a chance since, I don't know, 150.
Yeah.
But
yeah, who knows? Hyper skills maybe help a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure it does. I mean, I did notice that from when my Legion was non-existent and I was playing a few characters that just were god awful to like, the end, when you can just like almost one-shot anything towards the end of the levels. It's such a difference, getting your Legion up.
Yeah,
So
it's massive.
It really does change everything. Holy crap! Like getting Mercedes, Evan, and like Phantom when I had no Legion, I wanted to kill myself.
It's in a video game. Yeah, it's
worst things ever.
It's rough. Yeah. Well, yeah, you're playing them at their utmost weakest, right? So I always try to caution people. People are like, "Oh, Mercedes is god awful." I was like, "Well, first of all, you probably weren't playing it properly. I don't think you were probably properly comboing, which is, I don't.
No, it's hard.
Don't hold people to that, but like just make sure that you have that as part of your assessment of the thing, and you played it at the absolute weakest as well. So with those two things in mind, that's already, and then on top of that, like if you can't kill fast and it is weak, it's just, it has to be really, really, really cool for you to enjoy it. Like you can't just.
Oh, I know.
So yeah, to overcome that, and then it's like, oh, this new class is super cool. It's like, well, yeah, but you also have an 8K Legion and all level 3 links that you can throw on it immediately. It's like, oh, it's OP. It's like, well, keep in mind, you have like a few thousand hours worth of like work that you're already capitalizing on, right?
It definitely makes a difference for sure.
Because that's how you fund your characters, is by having a big Legion and links, and basically you're comparing an unfunded from 4 years ago to like a funded now. So yeah, obviously it's going to be hugely different.
Yep. Yes, sir. So yeah, there's a big difference.
Caution for that. But your original question was where to start with the bossing stuff. So I don't want to make sure we don't forget that question.
Yeah, sorry, we're going on tangents. I know.
Yeah. We could. It's very easy to hop from one thing to one thing. How familiar are you with all of my commands and stuff in the chat?
I'll be honest, not 100%. I know how to use them. I haven't really gone into them too much, just because, like I said, Legion's been my goal, and there's not much I need to know about Legion. Just get your characters up.
Yep. Yeah, just always say just roll your face on your keyboard and just see the levels go up, kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
You just put in the.
I mean, I got carpal tunnel, I think, because of it, but other than that, it's not too bad.
So it's the guy who wants the main Aaron or Kadena or Hoyoung. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I like the torture, like you said.
Just a little bit into it.
Yeah.
So one of my commands is the well, I would say the two big ones, or maybe three, but like one is like Legion and Links, like general priority list. I don't know if you've seen that one.
Yep. Yeah, I definitely have.
And then I would say the second one is the second and third kind of go in tandem with each other, is the progression grid and the dailies grid.
Right. Those I know of them. I just I haven't memorized them, unfortunately.
How dare you?
I know.
So the progression grid basically looks at what do I think is useful to spend your time on to keep like a balanced growth throughout the game that makes sense. Like not spending all your time to just get the number to go bigger in one scenario when that time would be spent way more efficiently somewhere else. Not telling you that you can't, but also to kind of give you an idea like, oh, you like Legion a lot? That's cool. You want to build a really big Legion? That's cool. That means that for all the other stuff, you probably don't need as much work done there, and you can probably be a little bit on the lower side. And that's probably fine. So, if you're like flaming on a mule and you're like, oh no, this thing says I need like a 25 flame score, but I only have 20, is that okay? Well, yeah, you have way bigger Legion, so yeah, of course you can swing that, right? As long as you kind of have an idea of where all the moving parts are and what the general advised metrics are, you can see for your personal situation, like, okay, is there something that's terribly underrepresented? Then you probably would want to prioritize that over other stuff. And if something's terribly overrepresented, that means you're going to get diminishing returns. But as long as you see that in the, through the lens of what is fun for me and what is not fun for me, then you get to decide, of course, what you do at the end of the day. Right. This, the reason I made all of this is, just so people have like general goals, and to kind of explain all of the individual stuff. So like if you talk about flames, there's like videos on flames. If you talk about Star Force, there's like calculators that you can can look at that on what the costs are. If you talk about boost nodes, that links to the matrix, so you can see, you know, like what boost nodes do you level, what skill nodes do you level. If you're talking about like all of these things here are basically just the things that impact your damage the most, with, of course, the most important part is like impacting your final damage. And one of the things that also impacts your final damage, specifically when you're min-maxing for bossing, is your level. Because the level difference between you and the bosses also creates a final damage penalty or buff depending on the difference. So the whole reason I made this is because there's basically no metric right now where you can say how strong are you, and you can just say one number or like one thing, and it's like that's how strong I am, right? Because there's just too many too many variables. People usually use stat, but the lower the stat is, the more variation in these other things it happens, and the less predictable the stat is in itself. Like you can look for 25k stat lucid, but if that person has 30% IED, they're doing less damage than someone who's like 6k stat or something, right? Because of the damage reduction. So the whole idea behind this is that you can use your level as that one number. If all of this makes sense and you're moving within these parameters, then the one number of how strong you are is just what level are you, basically.
Okay.
And based on that level, the dailies command looks at, you know, all of the content, all of the bosses, everything that exists, like kind of like what stuff can you get from it, and, you know, do I think it's relevant if you want to learn bossing? Some of them are just old relics of, you know, pre-Big Bang or Big Bang era that are kind of still in the game, but, you know, surviving or killing them doesn't give you any kind of benefit throughout the game, other than just, you know, their drops. And soul shards can get more useful later on, right? That's typically something you want to have in mind so that you don't end up in end game and you have like one magnificent soul to your name, and then you get a bad roll, and then you kind of, you know.
Actually, real quick, could you get into the souls thing? Because I'm actually not too familiar with the whole soul things. I know you get souls from defeating bosses, and that's pretty much all
souls are basically like a triple RNG layered system. So the first layer is well, maybe 4, I guess, but some bosses don't even have souls, so you already have to kill the right bosses. And then bosses have a chance to drop souls. Typically, the worse the soul is in possible outcomes, the higher the chance that they drop, you know, just to make it a little bit more annoying. And then once you have all the shards, you want to turn them from shards into souls. Ideally, you just kind of hold onto your shards always until there's a Sunny Sunday event, and then you turn them into souls, because then instead of 1% chance for a Magnificent, you have 5% chance for a Magnificent. And it's really just a numbers game at that point. So they're mostly it's just like the weekly bosses in late game and end game that are all what's called double S tier. There's just like, I think it's C, B, A, S, and double S tiers. Double S is the ones you want, because the Magnificents for double S are the ones who can give the best stats basically on the roll. They can give percentage attack, percentage magic attack, which are usually the highest sought after. But so all the souls, if it's not Magnificent, have like a limited time, and you can put it on a weapon, whatever, or they expire. Or you can put it in the soul book if you were like desperate for like a little bit more stats. Once you have the whole set completed and you use that soul on a weapon. But the double S ones are tradable, like transferable within your account, and do not expire. So if you want to, for late game and end game, you know, save up, there are some bosses that you can kind of mass produce, like mass farm within your account, to make sure that you give yourself a better chance later on to get a really nice soul on your weapon. And the main easy access ones are normal Magnus, or just Magnus as a whole, like has one type of shard. So from easy, from normal, and from hard, if you get soul shards, they will all be the same ones basically. So normal Magnus, normal Queen, normal Vellum, those are the weakest best souls basically. So the weakest bosses with the best souls. So you can farm those on multiple characters, and then on a Sunny Sunday, you know, double click, maybe on like 3 or 4 or 5 characters within your account, and you'll see that a lot more with people making more bossing mules, that hopefully a lot more people will be getting nice souls for their weapons and for their stuff.
Cool.
So
okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's generally what happens. There's also like a link to the souls here to the wiki itself. And there you can see like which souls are... Oh, there's a D tier as well, which, you know, nobody uses for anything. The Mugongwang is actually interesting, because even though the D tier means... The tier basically denounces what the base stats are of the soul when you put them on your weapon. And those are the stats that you always have. And then there's extra stats that you get from it being a soul weapon. That's the weapon and the magic attack that you can charge up by charging your soul, right, when you kill monsters with the soul weapon. And then there's a third thing, which is a possible soul skill. Now, like 99% of the soul skills are just garbage. Like they're either like one attack that just doesn't do anything. It does like less than like Urda Shower or something. So it's like, wow, okay. Or it can be a buff, which for most characters is garbage. But there's a few exceptions. So Mugong, for example, gives you percentage attack for a short duration. That can be useful for bursting, especially if you're like a Night Lord or something. And Ephenia gives you a huge chunk of HP and MP, which, of course, for most classes, late game and end game, is not useful because everything does percentage HP damage, right? So you give yourself more HP, you just get hit harder.
Matter.
Like yeah. But for Demon Avengers and possibly for Kannas, it can give you more damage. So that would be something that they can use. And then you ideally want a lot of survivability, right? Because if you die, all of your soul power is depleted instantly, and then basically you only get like one charge out of your soul. So it's up to you to decide, do I want to get a good soul with a high base stat that always works, like a double S tier that gives you like 3% attack throughout the entire boss fight, or do you take something with a high burst early on, and then, once the soul runs out or you die one time, that's gone, and then you're left with a very shitty base attack. So might depend on the class, might depend on how far in the game you are, whether you choose for like a more front end loaded or like a more like a DPS soul or a DPM soul, basically. And then the third class of summon is basically a summon, so that you summon a version of the boss and it flies around the map and it attacks. Typically these are pretty useless because they are going to be hitting in a hitbox like around your character where you already are anyway. So either you KS it or it KSs you. There could be scenarios where you almost kill off monsters, they help you kill it. Really the only summon that's meta at this point is the normal Lucid Soul. So Lucid might be the one, depending on where you're at, and Kannas might use this a lot, where you try to actually use the soul off of event because you want a lower chance to hit a Magnificent. Because the Magnificent summon is one that follows you around and, basically you KS it or it KSs you. But the normal one is a static one, which is, or stationary one, I should say. So you can put it somewhere on the map and then attack in another place, and then you have an extra summon that helps you clear the map.
Oh, okay, interesting.
They're pretty weak, so you have to be super strong, and you have to be in the right area of the game. But it can work up to a certain point. So usually once you get to Cernium or something, you always get rid of it because it's like 18 shotting or something. It's like absolutely useless at that point.
Sense, yeah.
But if you're really strong and you're like farming for a long time in Limina, for example, it can get really good, and it can help you get into maps maybe that other people can't get into because they can't cover them properly. So it might give you an advantage there. So that's basically all of souls. Yeah, and you can click on the souls as well, so you see the tier S, and then you can see the normal ones and the stats they give, and then you can see the Magnificent, and then it should say 1% chance. And then it gives one of these stats, So there's still some shitty ones, like all skill levels +2 is just dog awful. 5% all stat is like the consolation prize, I guess. 2000 HP is not good. I like 3% attack, 3% magic attack. I like critical rate a lot, especially once you have a bigger legion. People tend to want boss damage more. The IED is a pretty small source, but for some classes, like for Kanna, could be nice.
Yeah.
But people tend to prefer the boss damage over the critical rate, but I don't think that's a good idea because within your hyper stats and within your legion board, you have a lot of stuff that you can move around, and boss damage equals critical rate in a legion board, right? It's 1-to-1.
Yeah.
So if you can choose between a 7 or a 12, 12 is almost twice as good. So we want to make sure that once you're aware of like the big picture and all of the moving parts that go on, that you don't 12 crit rate, that's garbage. Well, no, you can move around and actually get a lot of value out of that. So depending on how many more Magnificent Souls you have, you might sell for something or pick another one. But so generally it's usually like Queen, Vellum, Magnus. Those are the ones you're going to see the most on most characters. And in late game, some people might, throw like some Magnificent Hard Wills and Magnificent Varus Hillas and those kind of crazy things onto it. And then they might settle for a slightly lower bonus just to have the prestige of that soul. Because you've probably seen people like with the charged soul in the game before.
Yeah.
And some of them look really cool. You can find it all here as well. I think the Dark Knell and the Varusilla are probably the ones that people like the most. So this is like the charged Varusilla. You just have this floating over your head.
Sick.
It's really cool. And
pretty cool.
Compared to the normal next to it, like this is the normal one and this is the Magnificent one. Yeah, they look They look a lot better, obviously, because they're so rare. And then non-reboot, like these are very expensive because they are transferable there. So people have those, and some of those are like from Marvel only. So, or not only, but yeah, there's some crazy ones. Or if you get it from Marvel, you can actually make a lot of money. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So that's Souls. That makes sense.
Yeah. Thanks for that. Yeah. Appreciate that.
And then the items you can get, of course, that's all also in the drop table of the bosses, of course, if you click through. And then the boss relevance. And then that leads into this thing, where it's basically those same pieces of content on the left side.
Yep.
And then based on your level, what I think is worth to look into and to, be occupied with. So yeah, I had it like red and green first, and then people were like, but what about colorblind people? That's true. So also it was a little bit aggressive on the eyes. So I went for a little lighter yellow and a blue. So the blue basically covering what I think is worth your time. And you will see as time goes on, a bunch of stuff gets dropped. Some things stay relevant all the way throughout. But it's not like you always have to do it, but it's like it's something to always consider. And if it's something on your path, then, do it. If it's not, then you don't do it. But it might be something that's good for you. Gotcha. So if you're like at 200, 210, right? Early mid-game, starting to do things. You can do the blue things. So like Maple Tour, Monster Park, Root Abyss. So Root Abyss here specifically is basically for those soul shards, right? If you want to keep cleaning up. And then Monster Park, you know what it's for. It's very useful. And Maple Tour for the extra money. And then, what do we have here? Ursus, also for income. And then we have, no Remoru, that would be weird. So CPQ stuff, if you're looking for the accessories, right?
Yeah, I'm not actually too familiar with that either. Listen, my gear is dog crap.
I saw some unique pencilier, so it was interesting.
It was during like the double miracle time, I think, and I'm like, I have all these cubes, everything else is legendary. I don't know what to do with them, so I just placed them in pencilier. I know that's a sin. I know I'm going to hell for it, but
rip in a handbasket all the way.
But so I do need a little help knowing gear stuff. I know that CRA is probably a good one to kind of start out with after Pencilier, but like let's say for my Kanna, she's 242. What should I go for at her level? Because I don't know if CRA is kind of worth trying to do, or I don't know.
Definitely. It's definitely worth trying to do.
Yeah.
Well, whenever you're deciding, you're always looking at like what are the alternatives. And then what is the best one right now? How close is that to the next upgrade? And is it worth possibly skipping the next one? And to a sense, what you already have invested in now, how much of that value can be transferred to the next thing easily, right? So let's say that you have very good pencilier now. People would probably want to go into Abzo. On some stuff. Well, you can create like a hypothetical scenario where it would make more sense to just transfer what you have now into like level 150 stuff, because you can immediately get started with good value on it. And there might be a scenario where, well, that's going to be switched into level 160 really soon anyway, so you might as well just skip and go into 160. Right. The main thing is to know the transfer hammer system. Are you familiar with how that works?
That's actually one of the questions I had too. I'm sort of familiar, but I might be missing a few details, so
okay.
If you don't mind getting into that just real quickly.
Sure. I'm wondering if we should I should just finish my spiel here on the dailies first.
Yeah, go for it.
And then we can go backtrack through the topics. So the idea is, people often ask like, do you have like an equip guide? And I don't make one because I think that takes a little bit too much away from the players, because then it's just like a big checklist simulator, right? And I want people to have a little bit more freedom. So I'm like, hey, this is the stuff that I think is worth your time. Look into that. If you like doing the things, do it. If you like doing the other stuff instead, do that. I'm not your dad, But I'm just pointing you in the general direction of what I think is worth it. And every single piece of equipment that you will need somewhere along the way is in this content. So if you do that content around those levels, you are going to either see directly like, oh, this is the stuff I can save up for, or you just have to believe that there is actually a chance that stuff will drop, inshallah, because drop rates are sometimes terrible. But yeah, you just have to hold on to the fact that does exist. all of the equips that might become relevant will be through here. The important stuff on to decide what do I do with my Kanna is, all those things I mentioned. But the third thing that's pretty important is what kind of content do you eventually want to do with that character? Because it is possible that you're already really close into settling into a sort of, a situation where your character can do everything that you want to do with it. And then it's very important to not overinvest, especially if you're trying to make it into a bossing mule. The whole point is to try to invest it exactly as much as it needs to and no extra, so that you can, cream off all the extra income that it generates to help fund all the other characters.
Yeah,
so
makes sense.
That's something that we kind of have to establish. So would the goal for the Kanna be to clear everything, including Lotus and Damien, and basically have that be the cutoff for content?
Probably. I'm probably gonna push it to at least 250.
Yeah, just ease it up, more matrix slots. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, that's felt like that was a good sort of ending goal for it. And yeah, whatever it can do from there. But yeah, that's probably a good benchmark right there for it.
So normal Lotus and Damien here has start. At least I have it here in the list of start around 225. If you're going up to 250, it's only 2-3 extra pieces of content extra. Maybe you can squeeze in an easy lucid or something.
Yeah.
Maybe just the beginning of these, maybe beginning of Will, but this is more if you're doing full party content. So if you're soloing, it's basically going to stop here.
Right.
So then you can go back to the progression grid, go back to the level part, and basically be okay, we want to be with this character at least in all the metrics of the beginning of the late game to be able to do all the stuff that you want to be able to do on it. So these will be pretty, for all the other ones, you kind of have to guess where in between it is. But for this one, it's actually pretty, and this ended up working out quite a while after I changed this to be oh, that's probably around the point. If you're trying to just do CRA and nothing else, you probably want to be around these numbers, right? The beginning of the mid game. And if you want to include Lotus and Damien, you want to be roughly around the end numbers in the mid game. You want faster runs, you go over it. And if you're okay with the slower runs, then those are basically the metrics. So that's in general where you want to aim. Your Legion is way over, so you could be a little bit lower on some things. But everything that manipulates your final damage, those are going to be the important things. So your IED is very important, your arcane power, specifically if you're doing Lucid, but under Lucid, of course, it's not as important. It's just going to be subsumed into the stat, right? Because it's just going to be flat stat. And then to an extent, the boss damage, the critical damage is going to be more important, but I didn't put a stat here for critical damage because it fluctuates way too much between classes. So you can't really put a general oh, go for 100%, and then Archer is lol, press one skill, get 200. Doesn't really make sense. So that's one of the things that's not in there. But in general, flame scores on stuff, and and the total amount of Star Force that you're looking for, that can give you an idea of, can I get away with having everything 12-star? Probably not. You're probably going to have some stuff, and more of the stuff go to 17. So that's something to work on. And then if you want to go to 17-star, that's when the transfer hammer comes in. Jeez, that was loud. Thank you, Kyle. That's when transfer hammer comes in. So
Destiny patch waiting room.
We'll get into transfer hammer first, and then we'll talk about the commercy a little bit. So the main thing with transfer hammering is that once you understand how that system works, you can see every item for the potential that it has, not what it can do for you right now, but what it can eventually do for you. So the concept behind transfer hammer is basically that you are allowed to move some of your upgrades from one item to another one. That's basically the idea. The limitations are that you have to be within 10 levels of the item level to move it from one to another, and it has to be the same item type. Now, below level 100, it can be up to 20 levels. So if you're past that point, but for a new person, you find you find a potential level 20 top or something, that's really cool, but you can't use it, but you can still keep it and then give it 1 star, because transfer hammer costs 1 star as a tax. So you have to give it at least 1 star and then transfer it over. And that way you can transfer just the fact of having potential over. So if you can't find potential scrolls, but you can find an item with potential, you've essentially found a potential scroll.
Okay.
Or you find an item with 3-line potential, now you found a potential stamp, right? So if you do that early on, before you're cubing, you can save a whole lot of needless searching for potential scrolls, or searching for or buying like expensive silver stamps, which I think we all did in the beginning of the game at some point. And then in hindsight, you're like, well, 8 mil a pop at 50% is kind of price gouging for newbies. But as you get more established, and the main thing about doing more bosses is that you'll see way more occult cubes, right, for a bunch of free rerolls. You see way more Master Craftsman cubes for the chance of tiering up and getting even all the way up to unique. And getting more flames that will help you, especially with the flame advantaged items like the Zakum accessories, to get a lot of free stat there, so that you don't have to really dedicate a lot of time into individual upgrades, but you're just slowly moving everything up to the standards where you want it to be. So to go back to Transfer Hammer, the main value that you will see is it will allow you to invest heavier into pieces without feeling like you might be fucking up, because you can already see the future for that piece. So for example, when you're looking at Pencilier, you can see it as like, okay, I need damage right now. Pencilier is like accessible, it has an okay set bonus, you know, it's way more easy to get than other stuff, and you can just get like 5 or 10 pieces, pick whatever has like an okay flame, a cold cubit, and like move on, you know, and get some Star Force. But what it also says is like, well, the next piece that I'm going to get, CRA, that's level 150. Oh, that's 10 level difference. So you can immediately see Pencilier goes into that. And one exception where for transfer hammering, where it has to be the same type of item, a overall can go into a top and can go into a bottom.
Okay.
And a top can also go into overall, and a bottom can also go into an overall. Just top and bottom cannot go into each other. So that's like the one exception. So sometimes people get a little bit confused with weapons. It's like, oh, can I transfer a bow into two-handed sword? Like, no, it has to be two-handed sword into two-handed sword. It has to be the same. But this also means, although it's not as relevant anymore, that you could also take like a mage shoulder and transfer into like a warrior shoulder. Like, it doesn't discriminate between who it's for. It just looks at it has to be the same item type. But that's now changed. You probably remember like old Ranmaru, or maybe you didn't kill it, but like it would drop equips for any class, which was actually really cool because you didn't have to worry about, you know, who it's for. You just needed the piece. But now they changed it to only dropping for your class, so that actually was a pretty big nerf. So.
Okay. All right, that makes sense then.
Yeah.
So then would you suggest for my Kanna to try to get it up to CRA and transfer hammer it up?
Yeah, like it depends on like how close you are now. We would have to look at the metrics, and you can look at the progression grid and see like where am I lacking versus what am I already like ticking the boxes on. But you know, with some practice, if you look at your stats right now, like the ID is on the lower hand, but you know, you're a Kanna, what are you gonna do? That's just gonna happen.
I'm trying.
I don't know if in this picture you have all of your link skills set to bossing for like ID, or is it mostly like for mobbing setup?
I think it's my bossing setup, and I think I have it down there actually somewhere in the pictures.
Oh yeah, okay.
But yeah, this is my bossing setup, I believe.
Yeah. So the only thing, like the Ho Young link would be the only thing with more IED in it, but other than that, and Explorer mages.
Oh, that's
would help.
right. Yeah, I forgot about Ho Young's. Yep.
So Explorer
and then
mages.
I have to get the light wash up.
Yeah. So you have if this is your bossing setup, you want to take the Elven Blessing out.
Okay.
And probably the Thief's Cunning out, and I put the Ho Young and the Explorer Mage in, because IED is like you need crit rate and IED. That's like the main stuff you need, and knockback resistance. But it depends on, you know, how long the runs are going to be and how much you'd rather have just extra damage than, you know, being able to get pushed. I'd say knockback resistance is very important on like Chaos Papulatas and bosses like that just like bump you into death.
Push you around,
Because for CRA, the main thing you want to do is just not get hit by anything, and it's more about positioning. And whether you get pushed a little bit or pushed a lot, that's not really the deal breaker. It's more just don't get hit, and that just takes
not
practice.
Even relevant.
Yeah.
Yep.
Not as much.
Okay.
So I would get the ID in, but I think you can with practice, you can definitely kill the first 3 doors, and that will get you access to the CRA pieces. And then if you transfer into that, so remember, if you transfer, you lose 1 star. Which can be important when you're thinking about safe spots on star forcing, right? 5, 10, 15, 20 are the safe spots. So if you're transferring from like at 20 stars, you typically never want to do that, because then you end up with a 19, and then it can drop back all the way down to 15. So you want to do it at 21. You want to do it at 16, right? Those are typically, You used to have to do it at 11 as well, but now it can't drop anymore below 10. So, you know, you can also transfer from 10 to 9. That doesn't really matter. But like, keep those safety spots in time. And the second thing that's a limitation, everything gets transferred over except for the flame. So if you're transferring from an item without flame advantage, like Pencilier, into an item with flame advantage, like CRA, you can already pre-flame the CRA if you want to, and then if you transfer, and you will see it in the transfer hammer window, you will see like what it's going to come out as. I don't know if I have anything. Oh yeah, I have something here, yeah. So you can see like, okay, I have these earrings right now, and then I'm going to transfer into this. So you can predict what it's going to be, right? So it's going to be reinforced earrings. It's going to have this flame of the target item, right? Because the flame is not going to get taken over. It's going to be 11 stars because this one starts with 12, so it's going to consume 1. And the last thing that it does is it redirects the potential to epic at the highest. So if it's rare, it stays rare. If it's epic, it stays epic. But if it's anywhere above epic, it goes back down to epic.
Okay, so the potentials don't really get carried over, really.
Not as well. So the main thing that you want to... So what that means, right, if you're looking at the potential of an item and the future of an item, it means you can actually go quite hard at star forcing if you really wanted to, because most of that gets maintained. But potential-wise, if the future of the item is to get transfer hammered over, you typically only go for like a really good epic line or like a so-so unique line.
Okay.
Because it's going to get redirected. The beautiful thing about transfer hammer is though that if the line exists in epic, it will give it to you in epic. So this is a 966 line. It goes down to epic. It won't go down to 633. It'll go down to 666. So it will keep the 12 intellect. So in a sense, it's not even a downgrade for me. It keeps the same amount of intellect if I switched it over. And now the beautiful thing is, now I have a level 140 earring with these stats. Now if I find a superior earring from Helix, I can transfer it in right away again. I can use them as like a leapfrog system to make sure that all of that initial investment is ending up in the final piece.
I see. Okay, so this is pretty important sort of system then.
I think this is probably the most important system in the game, honestly, when it comes to progressing through the game in terms of equips and understanding what the value of pieces really are. Because you can find like some random level 130 shoulder and think like, this doesn't have a set bonus, you know, like I don't need this for anything. But once you understand the system, you're like, wait, I'm using a royal black metal shoulder, right, for the boss accessory set, and I can get a level 140 shoulder from like Empress or maybe from some other sources, and I can find a level 150 somewhere. Now I can do 120, 130, 140, 150, and then transfer it eventually into the Absolab shoulder. What does that give you? You know, you start with 10 or 11 Star Force. That's not that crazy, but what it does give you is basically 100% epic potential scroll. So you don't have to worry about tearing it up as much. And then, so I will say like the Transfer Hammer video goes a little bit more in depth on like which pieces you're looking for at which stage of the game and how you want to prepare for the next stage. Now for the Kanna, you'll have to pick pieces from all of the different stages, but for a newer character, you might be more able to follow like the exact stages in there. That will make sense because that will have a reflection on the dailies as well. On you might think like, well, why the hell is a boss like Arcarium on there to like do always like it's like a level barely like a level 200 boss and then you just nuke it? Doesn't make any sense. Well, that's because it drops Dominator pendants, and Dominator pendants by themselves are good. They've got flame advantage, boss accessory set, really nice, and very rare. But like, why is it very important? Well, because if you get a lot of them, which is easier than the only other alternative, which is a reinforced pendant, then you can transfer hammer it into a superior pendant, and you can make sure you only have to buy one of them, or however many, depending on how much risk you want to take, because that is very, very expensive. And the other thing is, and the video also goes into transposing, and that links with Sweetwater, and that's like a similar system to Transfer Hammer, but it's very specific to transferring into Sweetwater items. Sweetwater items only, and it's unique to the Commercy region. And it costs the dineros that you need to do the voyages for, and it costs you the piece that you're transferring into, which also costs dineros, so you can already see this can get kind of expensive. But that one does more than just transferring the stars -1. That one also transfers the flame over, which is really good because all of the Sweetwater stuff does not have flame advantage. So this allows you to get really good flames on stuff like the Dominator that has advantage and move them onto an item that doesn't naturally have an advantage, giving them a lot greater stats. On top of that, the Dominator is very rare, but if you make enough dineros, you can eventually buy as many accessories as you want. So it gives you the power to go for a higher Star Force on there. And then the third thing it does is the process of transposing itself, and that's why ideally you want to transpose at 16 stars. Not so much because of the safe spot like with Transfer Hammer, but just because of how many stats you will eventually end up with. Because you could transpose at any amount of Star Force, but just because of how the maths work out, it's most efficient at 16. And when you do that, you get a certain amount of bonus stats on top of the whole process, on top of getting the flame, and on top of getting into the higher tier. And then the fourth thing that it also does is because Sweetwater is a higher potential tier, you get into like the 13-10-10 area instead of being stuck in a 12-9-9 area. So you also get more bonus potential. And all of those things together make transposing really good. So it's for that purpose, like the fact that the Dominator can be really good by itself, the fact that it can help with drop and meso gear, the fact that it can transfer hammer into the pendant, the fact that it can transpose into the Sweetwater, and then later, if you want to go for a source of suffering, you'll need a lot of Dominators, transfer into a superior pendant, and then transfer that into the source of suffering, right? Because that's a level 160, and then you're using a superior, which now seems like holy shit. You're using that as like a fodder in between to get into the real thing, into the pitch boss. And because that eventually can be part of the plan, you need to start up early in getting these backups, so that once it becomes a thing that you can possibly do, you've laid the groundwork to be able to jump into it. Plus, Arc also drops the what are they called? I want to say abyssal, but it's not what it is at all. Primal essences, which can craft Dominators, but that's pretty inefficient unless you're super unlucky. But it can also craft Meister rings, and Meister rings basically have the exact same function. You can use it by itself, it's really good. You can transfer it into the superior ring, which is very good, and you can transfer it into superior ring, which then later transfers into the slime ring, and eventually that's best in slot. So because there's so many uses for them, you want to have those materials.
Okay, so that is important then.
Yeah, and that's all shown in why is it even highlighted in the dailies, what drops, like in the tab, like why, like what drops are important from those dailies, and how strong do you want to be able to kill them. And the other thing that goes hand in hand with this is having drop rate gear around that time to increase your odds, and possibly running it on multiple characters in the case of souls. And also in the case of the primal essences, because that's a transferable etc. item. So if you can run with multiple characters, that's one of the best ways of giving yourself more chances of the drops.
Right. Yeah, I think that's eventually what I'm going to want to build the account up for, to kind of do that, multiple runs with things like that.
Yeah, boss mules will easily just like nuke something like normal arc, and just the normal bosses for the soul shards will be very easy to just blow up.
Okay. All right, well, that's all really good to know, because I had no idea it was that important.
Yeah.
So I'll take a look at that video too, more in depth.
Yeah, it goes a little bit more in depth in details. Yeah, but it definitely look into that. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate.
So the accessories, so to round that out, the Sweetwater accessories are mainly important because once you get into the Golok stuff, which you really want to, the superior Golok stuff, right? Because of the set bonus. Once you go into that, you'll see there's a lot of overlap between those pieces and the items that you already have, and that you're getting the boss accessory set bonus from. So what's going to happen is that set bonus is basically going to fall apart, and that means that the remaining pieces are probably going to stay like drop and meso gear. That's kind of nice because higher flame score and the set bonus that helps you not lose as much damage when you switch into it. But when it comes to really doing as much damage as possible, those items are just gimped by their item level, and you can't go high Star Force. And that's when the Sweetwater stuff comes in, because that allows you to realistically go for a higher Star Force, because you can get backups. And because Star Force, and you probably already Star Force some stuff like up to 15 is basically just bullshit. Like you get nothing from that. It's once you go past 15, that's where the real stuff is. And that's why the Sweetwater pieces really come in then, because set falls apart, and then basically Sweetwater and Superior Goloks completely take over. And that's the point where you get everything to 17, and that's the point where you really dedicate or split up, I should say, the sets, being like, this one is for drop and meso, this one is for when I'm bossing for damage, and then later, but probably not with this character, but with the main, the set after that would be like, and this is the set with like full drop rate when I'm strong enough to even kill the bosses in drop rate. And then you might start switching out a little of the meso obtained pieces with like extra drop rate pieces. where you like,
Okay.
kind of like recycle, salvage some of the pieces that were unique or legendary that have kind of been cast to the wayside because they didn't really have a function anymore, and then they can get like a second life as an extra drop rate piece.
I see. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
That's the grand. Yeah, that was a lot, but that's like the grand. Yeah, that's like the overarching meta in which gear progression is kind of situated, I guess.
No, it's good because I think I was missing all of that. Like I said, gear for me, I just haven't done like anything with it. I've just been pretty much throwing.
Well, you haven't had
shit.
to, right? It kind of just
Yeah.
kept working and things kept dying. So why worry too much?
Exactly. So, but now I have to actually study up on it a little bit because from here on in, it's a little bit more serious.
When it comes to bossing, it's kind of the same approach. Like you can go in and you can probably kill them, but after a while you're like, well, now I know I can kill them, but do I really want like 30-minute runs for every single boss? That's like pulling teeth. Probably want to speed that thing up a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's what we'll we'll try to do here.
All right, cool. Well, I guess speaking now that you're on my embarrassing familiar page, I guess we can talk about familiars.
Sure.
I know that I probably need some like IED from them, and like I don't know. Can you go a little bit into familiars? And I have 9 badges. I'm like really close to the 10th one, but that 10th one's a bitch. So
yeah.
Where I know that like Moonbridge is probably a good place to like train for them, like the spiders and the Sphera might be good too. But what do I aim for? Do I aim for the blue ones, and like how do I level them up and things like that?
Sure. So I have my familiar command here. The main thing in the beginning is just standard info on things that you can do, functionality for the familiars. It goes into leveling up familiars depending on their rarity, the stats that they get, the importance of the defense stat, right? So the more total defense you have, the slower your familiar gauge will deplete, which is a little bit counterintuitive. So like if you put 3 very strong familiars in, you'd think like, oh, that would consume more familiar gauge than just like one tiny one. No, that consumes less actually. So if you get high level epic and uniques, they can get up to like 10 or more defense. And at that point, so the 5+, that's only for non-reboot. So we're looking at up to level 5 and mainly up to unique. Legendary is pretty non-existent. It can exist, but there's maybe like 2 handful of people who have one, so.
It's not like in Reboot doesn't have a lot, right?
Well, the main thing is like you have like those red cards that allow you to reroll and have a very small chance of tearing up. And that's a huge money sink for people in non-reboot, but there's potential gains there, and we just don't have access to those. So. Okay, then it talks about the ranks. That's pretty self-explanatory because it's the same as potential, right? So that's intuitive at this point. Your rank up, the amount of points you need, and the chance to rank up. So this is when you are... so the general thing is, if you find a decent amount of familiars, but you have 5 or 10 of every kind, it doesn't make much sense to do the fusing thing. So you've done a little bit of it already, but unless you know that you're going to be in an area for a long time and you're going to make, and knowing the cost here is pretty important, like at least 50, but you typically never want to level a common to a rare because rares also drop. So this is very inefficient to do. You'd rather just throw them always into a rare to make epics or into an epic to make uniques. That's where it's at. But you're looking at 100 points and then only an 80% chance to clear, right? So it's like an average of 125 to be able to just do one rank up. So if you have like 20 cards, but you're not really training in that area, it's better to just extract them all and to get the resources in the shop, because then you can either, if you have a lot, maybe buy a booster pack or keep like a healthy buffer for extra essence if you want to do longer training sessions in a day without not being able to have your familiars, because familiars get very important later on when it comes to the drop rate or mezzo, more cards with the drop rate, and especially when you were bossing, you don't want to start bossing and be like, oh, all of my familiars ran out for today and my essence, and I don't have any essence, now I can't use my IED and actually damage the boss. So you want to make sure that you're always like planning ahead with that.
Okay.
If the rank up fails, then you lose 50% of the points. Oh yeah, so it's more than 125. It's a little bit, I don't know the maths exactly right now. But rare to epic is pretty safe, but epic to unique is like a slugfest. You have to be really hard grinding. And eventually when you have 3 slots, what you can do is definitely want to have one slot that's basically your drop rate familiar to get more drop rate. and then the other 2 are the familiars that you're ranking up. So because to be able to rank up, you have to level them and you have to fuse them to max level. So you level them by summoning them and killing monsters near your level, so you have to just do that for a while. I think if you're hard farming and you're like on a totem, it's probably like 15 to 20 minutes and then they're maxed, so it's not that long of a process. But the fusing up is probably something you do afterwards, you know, when you have a lot of cards, and then you try to fuse up at the end and see if you get anything nice, and then, you know, you cry deeply at your disappointment when you get nothing because there's too much variance and it's all a lie. So
yeah, that's MapleStory though.
Yeah, yeah, that's MapleStory. There's a suspicious familiar in the shop. That's a complete waste of time. Don't worry about that. Yeah, it talks about the potentials. There's a small chance that both of the potentials are the same tier as the potential, but as the familiar. But typically, the top line is a little bit is like the higher tier. So like the top line will be epic on an epic familiar, and then the bottom line is typically rare. Very small chance of also being epic.
Yep.
Reveal costs, summoning familiars. It talks about the slots. You're already familiar with that. Summon gauge, I just explained about that, right? Familiar essence is very important. Talks about the badges and the stats. There's some stacking stuff when it comes to badges. So like endgame, you might want to switch some badges around when you have access to a lot of them. Familiar shop, so basically talks about the essence in the booster pack and about how the just don't, like, suspicious familiar is just garbage. Oh yeah, and here it talks about the extracting. So like when you extract them, these are the amount of points you get to be able to buy these items with. So in the beginning, and basically here it comes down to the advice. So this is like the meat and potatoes of what you're looking for. So in the beginning, you're working on Legion. Hopefully you kept a bunch of those cards just sitting on the characters. You basically just put them all in storage, throw them all up to whatever character needs something, and you just reveal all of them. Because even the common ones can get IED. So for common and rare, you're looking for IED percentage, 15% IED. Just 2 of them already on your Kanna will do wonders for your damage when you're bossing. Okay. Between the familiars and getting the first 3 CRA pieces and equipping those, that IED is probably going to be, that's going to be the biggest impact you can have, except for probably your emblem, because I saw the potential was set to intellect instead of to magic attack or IED. That's one major thing that we have to make sure we mention.
Okay.
But between those 2 things, it's just going to be practice, and CRA will be dead. That's all it is.
Okay.
And then, you know, the extra pieces, that gives you a lot of extra damage. Like the 3 set is just 50 magic attack and percentage HP and MP, which you also scale off, so that's nice. And the extra IED on the pieces itself and the higher base stats, and the fact that it's flame advantage, and the fact that it's 2 pieces instead of an overall is just monumental difference. And once you keep killing them, you also get a lot of backups very easily in the terms of the... and you get it in forms of emblems, not like filling up your inventory, so that's also really good. And then, therefore, they're the first pieces you basically get to 17 because you don't have the safeguard. So they're way cheaper to upgrade in that result as well. And they're also the first things you're going to get past 17 because even if it booms, you have all the backups. And when you get a trace, it works kind of like Transfer Hammer in the sense that everything just gets moved over into the same piece again. So you just have to remake a piece, and then you move the trace, like a Transfer Hammer, back into the item, and all the stats are saved, except the Star Force goes down to 12, because that's the highest you can go without booming. But then you just start back up from 12, and all of your cubing, if it's a weapon even, your soul is saved, your potential, your flame, all of that is saved. You just start back on the Star Force. So that's why, you know, that's another one where it's really good to have backups. Yeah, so if you have bad familiars or you don't have a lot of the same, you extract them all and you get into the shop. You can buy a booster pack, but make sure you have like 4 or 5, I would say, familiar essences worth to buy. You don't necessarily have to buy them, but just like keep that amount in the shop, just, you know, if you need to. Extra cards can be transferred to other characters. So once you have your IED, the main thing you're probably looking for is like IED and drop rate, right? So the drop rate from common, I believe, is just small amount. That's something, but it's kind of the main thing you're looking for is if you can get the drop rate from a rare card. So increased drop rate from small amount from, it can be from common rare, that's 30%, which is nice. But if you just get increased drop rate from rare epic, that's 50%. So that's probably the one you want to look for. And that's like all the way up until the mid game, beginning of the late game, that's the one you want. And then once you start making epics, then you're looking for increases drop rate by a large amount, this one, which is a 100% line. Once you have that one, you're off to the races. You can start making mass-producing uniques, and then you're going to be looking for what is it, like item acquisition rate, maybe, auto steal, large amounts of healing, large amounts of boss damage, IED, those kind of things. And that's when the really big gains are made. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
So so that's also explained here, right? Like to make the large drop rate, make epics if you're training in an area where a lot of them drop, and then large healing, high IED, boss damage, and all that stuff is you're looking for. So if you need the resources are all here. So this has all of the potential outcomes from familiars. If you just want to look through what's possible.
Oh my god. Okay. Jesus Christ.
This one is the drop rate one that I just opened. So that kind of talks about how much drop rate you need, which lines are useful for you, and which ones are no longer necessary depending on your setup. Because on the one hand you have meso obtain, and on the other hand you have item drop rate, but there's also a thing called meso drop rate, and these are all distinctly different things, and they can be pretty confusing. So this might be a good thing to read through just to make sure that you have all three of those clear. And it also talks about, like, the goal is basically this is the main thing that you're going to be aiming for, which you probably already have most of, right? Because you've been using the Kanna to fund the others. But this might be something that's no longer necessary for your Kanna, right? Because it's mainly going to get turned into a bossing wheel. You're probably not going to spend too much more on it. But every new character that's going to have to fund itself, and possibly whatever next character comes after it, is going to have to go through that same transition. So for that one, it will be very useful.
All right, so yeah, my new main will probably have to get into that then too.
Yep. And then the last one is about the badges, like which ones are easy to get, which ones are a little bit harder to get. Yeah, if you're looking for your last one and you see one here that you might not have yet, then that's a green light. But the ones that you don't have is probably here the A tier ones that are easy to get but high level restriction.
I think the labyrinth one is one of the one I was thinking of.
Exactly.
Next.
I think you just need you probably want to get like 3 more levels at spiders, right? And then you can get to Moonbridge, and then the Moonbridge is free, and then boom, you have 3 slots, and then you can start leveling 2 at a time. Use that 3rd slot.
Yeah, that sounds good. I'll probably get to like 244 and then use the magnificent potion.
Speed that up a bit.
Fairy Bros.
There are some sets that are basically super easy, but then there's just one that's impossible to get.
I know.
Yeah, you probably ran into those.
Like a bunch of them. I'm just getting to dead ends. I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah, like the Seraph one, right? You try to get the magic attack in Aqua, and then it's like, Seraph doesn't drop. Yeah. Apparently it does drop, but from the people I've heard, there was like 2 people who got pretty lucky and got it like in the first 60 or something, and 1 person got it after like 800 kills. But most people just are convinced that it doesn't even exist because it's too fucking rare. Those cards seem to have a decent chance of actually popping up in booster packs though. So if you get lucky on a booster pack, or you can also, like, if you kill Papalatus, that familiar also drops every now and then. I think it's more rare than the actual Pep mark, but it can drop. Once you get those, you basically get a free set, but those are kind of like Hail Marys. Yeah.
Okay. I'll keep that in mind then. All right, cool. That definitely explains a lot about familiars then.
Yeah, so feel free to use the familiar command if you need to, double check something, or like whatever is a good idea. But it's got like the general advice and all the resources at the bottom that you might need, I think.
Okay, cool.
All right.
Well, thank you. I think there's only a few things left that I really had questions on. One of them was professions. I haven't gotten into professions that much. Is it necessary? If so, what do I go for? How much time do I spend on it? I see people picking flowers and stones every day. I'm like, what the hell are you doing, man? I feel like I'm getting in on that.
Yeah, I've got a. I think it's someone else's video that I put under the professions command. I think it's Seth's video where he talks about it. Yeah, because I had one, but it was quite outdated. But Seth made a video, so I linked that one. Basically, the thing with professions is that a lot of the stuff is kind of unnecessary, but the stuff that isn't is super duper necessary. So professions are used in general. I can just open the window here, I guess, to show a little bit. All of them have like a few really good uses. So like herbalism in itself is whatever. But you know, you eventually want a rose clipping, so you need herbalism for that. You know, you want to get that pocket item slot available, and yeah, and then you also need the level 30 charm for that. But you know, that happens eventually. There's no real worries about that. So well, okay. So there's the traits first, right? That's also a separate command. But like ambition gives you extra IED, right? And you get that through bossing. So that's just nice for everyone eventually. The reduction of death penalties, whatever. Basically, the most important ones are like these four here. Like charm is basically useless, you know, up to level 30, whatever for the pocket, but past that it's pretty much completely useless. Diligence doesn't do anything in reboot, so it's all about these four here. Ambition will level the easiest if you just play the game, so that one is the least important to really worry about. Willpower is like a little bit passive for, you know, doing stuff and being logged in and doing guild stuff, I think. But it also only gives like HP, small amounts of HP, small amounts of defense, which is absolutely useless, and a little bit of status resistance. So that's something that you might want to work on later if you really feel strongly about the character, but it's like okay that it doesn't level very strong. Empathy is useful on the buff duration, but some classes, you know, it's not that important, but for some it's really important. So you don't want to neglect that. And insight, if you know you're going to take your character further, that is what you definitely want to be leveling up. Because empathy and insight level from harvesting. So they level very, very, very slowly. Like for empathy, you have to harvest flowers, and for insight, you have to harvest rocks. So they don't move, basically. So if you have trait boost potions, these are the two that you want to boost if you want to push your character further. Elemental resistance is basically a form of lowering a different type of defense from bosses, a different type of armor that it has from PDR. It has PDR and it also has an elemental resistance. And there's only like 3 or 4 classes, I think, in the game, maybe 5, that have some ignore elemental resistance, and no one else has any except for the insight stat. So you can get that up all the way to, I believe, 5%. And the boss has 200%, so that means that you get like 2.5% final damage, basically, if you don't have any other sources. So, you know, for endgame calculations, that's actually a lot.
Yeah.
So that's for like long-term planning. Empathy buff duration is like, you know, okay for some classes. Can be really useful if you're like an elemental mage, for example. And then, yeah, status resistance helps, and ambition, yeah. So some of these are linked to the professions, like I just said, but a lot of it is also kind of just like separate. So, but that's more about like where to use your trait boost potions, I guess. When it comes to the professions, alchemy is used right now mainly for making the WOPs and the EOPs that you probably heard about.
What do those stand for?
Wealth acquisition potion and experience accumulation potion. Yeah.
Yep.
So that's why people want alchemy, and that's why also you see people harvesting. So people will be harvesting rocks because they want a chance to get primals, and they'll be harvesting flowers also for a chance of primals, maybe for rose clipping or for juniper. Juniper berry seeds and juniper berry seed oils are the main ingredient for WOP and EOP and are the major bottleneck. Gold flower is the best thing to harvest whenever you see it, because gold flowers can drop the refined oils straight up, and also a stack of them. So, you know, you might harvest a big flower. If you get lucky, you get like 2 juniper berry seeds. But if you get lucky on a gold flower, you can get 3 or I think even 4 juniper berry seed oils. And every oil is refined by taking 6 seeds, and you have even a chance of failing and getting magic purple powder instead. So that's like incredibly valuable. So that's why every big flower you see and big rock you see, you can harvest, and I would advise to harvest on any character when you see it.
Jeez. There's so much to this.
Yeah, and this goes back into the same thing like with transfer hammering and with backups. If you start doing it early and you keep up with it a little bit over time, by the time you're like, okay, now I want to make a bunch of WOPs, and now I want to make those big potions to help me train, then you already have the resources, and then you can make them. But the trouble is like, okay, now I have, if you don't do that, then you have to actively start harvesting for it, and then it's going to feel terrible and like nothing drops, because they don't really drop a lot. They are pretty rare. But that's why you want to spread that over a long period of time to kind of like, ease into the suffering or make it less suffering, because you're not suffering as much because you don't need it right now. You're more like future prepping with it. Yeah.
Right. Yep. Okay. That's good to know. We'll definitely have to start doing that then.
Accessory crafting is used mostly... Oh, and alchemy is also used now to make boss rush potions. But that's probably not going to be used as much anymore in the future because of the boss drops changing, and they're going to be dropping those big potions that you might have seen when you do Root Abyss. Sometimes a shop pops up, right, and allows you to buy those big shiny potions. I don't know if you've seen them, but they last 2 hours. They give IED or boss damage. Those are going to be dropping. Yeah, those are going to be dropping more from bosses in the game itself. So that's probably going to take pressure off of needing to use alchemy for crafting those potions. And then accessory crafting is mainly just used to make those Meister rings that I mentioned earlier. That's essentially what they're used for, what it's used for. And other than that, there's maybe like 1 or 2 things that some niche people use somewhere, but that's pretty much it. So basically you don't touch that all the way until you're trying to like send a bunch of Meister rings to 21 star to transfer into 20 star superior basically. So that's for later in the game. And smithing is used mainly for 2 things. One is to make shields on characters that use shields as their secondary weapon because they go all the way up to 20 stars. The Deimos shields, the recipes drop from normal Cygnus. And yeah, just because they go up to 20 stars and they're a secondary weapon, they're pretty much best in slot for everyone who can wear them, with the only exception, I think, Hero and Paladin in the end game, because then the 2-handed weapon scales better for them. Gotcha. But even early on, they probably want it, because that means they don't need the attack speed inner ability to be able to hit max attack speed, which gives you the ability to have Mezzo obtained there, for example, which helps you make way more money throughout the game, and then, you know, you get to the finish line faster, basically. The second thing smithing is used for is for the weapon tempering skill, which you unlock when you go to Craftsman or Meister, so past level 10, that you have to then upkeep because you have decay if you're going past level 10 and you have to keep crafting stuff, otherwise you lose your edge and everything, whatever. But it enables a skill that gives you critical damage. And this is for like late game, well, mostly late game and end game bossing. When you're trying to min-max your bossing damage, those big potions I mentioned earlier, there's like 2 slots that can be used if you're an alchemist for what's called big potions. And that includes like the WOPs and the EOPs, right? So if you use 2 of those for training, the only reason you can use 2 because you're an alchemist, and in Reboot we are everything, so we can always use 2, that's nice. But when you're bossing, you can also use 2 big potions, and you can choose to use a big ID potion, a big boss damage potion, but you can never use 2 that do the same thing. So you couldn't use like 2 ID or 2 boss damage potions, that doesn't stack. Right. But what's also counted as a big potion is that skill that gives you critical damage, the weapon tempering that you unlock with high level smithing. So that also counts. So if people try to min-max, typically they go for a boss damage and the critical damage because of how damage scales, basically.
Yep. All right, but that's like end game.
Yeah, that's very far into it. Yeah, and then I guess all 3 of them are also used for extracting items. That's like a general overarching use. I don't know if you've been doing that.
No, I did have a question on that too, because I've seen you do it a few times.
Oh, you're a lot more quiet suddenly, by the way.
Oh, can you hear me now?
No, it's pretty quiet.
Okay,
that's better.
Something.
No, that's good. Say it nice and close like that. I love it.
It's good?
Yeah, it's great.
Oh, good. All right, I don't know what happened, but what was I saying? Yeah, I've seen you use the extraction before, but I don't know exactly what that's for.
The main thing is that there's a small chance on items above level 105 that you get Philosopher Stones. And those are needed in crafting certain stuff. You need them for the WOPs and the EOPs. You need them to craft the Meister rings, for example, and for various other stuff. But you don't need that many of them, so you can also NPC them. And in Reboot, they NPC for 300k. And if you extract, let's say, like a penciler item, I don't know, this is like bro science almost, but I feel like it's about like 0.7 or something average Philosopher Stones that you get per item you extract. So 0.7 times 300k is about 210k per piece. But if you just NPC them, you get about 40k. So you do like 5x the value of NPCing instead. Plus, again, you're building up a buffer of Philosopher Stones and of boss crystals and item crystals that you will need later to craft various things. So you're building up resources, and it just generally gives you more money along the way.
That's probably the important thing right there then.
Yeah.
The resources. Okay, cool. I'll have to start doing that as well. Like I said, like I've done the Legion, but everything else is just like I've heard about it, but Don't
Yeah, you
need
really
it right
one track mind through the whole thing.
I
so
had
now-
to have
yeah.
been, because if
Yeah.
I didn't, then I wasn't gonna finish the Legion.
Yeah, so now you're catching up. Yeah, so
so I'm
it's so level 6 alchemy or smithing or accessory crafting, whatever. That's when you get access to extract items of any level. So that's like the sweet spot basically for the bottom professions. Yeah, leveling, herbalism and mining leveling, I don't know if it even does very much. So you can level it if you want to, but it's not super important.
Okay, cool, noted. Thank you. Yeah, that was one of the last. Oh, the last thing I can think of is the, guilds.
Okay.
Because I'm in a guild, and I've been in one for a while. I don't know how they haven't kicked me out. So shout out to Explorer out there for still keeping me on. Because I don't do anything. I've been on my other characters the whole time, but I know a little bit about guild skills. Do you have to activate them or something?
Yeah, so if you can drag them onto a key if you want to. They're like draggable. So if you hover over them, you can see what level they are and what their metrics are. So if you see 15 out of 15, that's pretty straightforward. That means 30-minute duration, 60-minute cooldown. So if you're bossing, you have like half an hour of superpowers basically, depending on what has been leveled. And then a half an hour of cooldown. Or if you're training, you can also stagger them so that you always have one of the effects going on, so that you have, a lot of powers the whole time. So you can use a hard hitter and that's why you hard hitter and for the guild, right? The right side ones are typically leveled first because they're the strongest ones, and you can also alternate between them, use them for both for mobbing and for bossing. So that's the big value. You get the skill points throughout the week and you can check the guild contents tab for that. And you can see how many skill points you got this week and where they came from, and how many skill points you're on track to get next week. So you have 3 things: weekly missions, culvert, and flag race. And weekly missions and flag race are pretty straightforward. They could just go up to, when you hit the max amount, you get up to 10 skill points. So for flag race, you can just see the progress bar, right? Like every little block here is 1 skill point, 10,000 points is 10 skill points, and then that's done. That's maxed out. And then achievement points is for 20 points every bar, up to 200 total, up to 10 skill points. The top one, the weekly missions, is easiest to fill. If you just have even a few people playing the game, then that's filled up pretty quickly. Flag race, depending on which of the flag races it is, might be a little bit harder. Flag race opens up every half hour, or not every half hour, but every half of the hour basically. So like at 1:30, 2:30, 3:30, like that. And is only open for 2 minutes for you to enter and to get in. So it's pretty, you have to have pretty good timing, and typically you're like, oh, it's flag race in 2 minutes, let me go to town map to make sure I can make it, and then you get distracted by something and then you miss it. That tends to happen a lot. And the main thing is
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, the main thing is the culvert. That's where everyone has to go in, and then you have 2 minutes to do as much damage to the culvert boss as you can. It's just like a boss that summons in the waterway. You try to bring as many buffs with you. All your buffs get stripped beforehand, so you tend to go in, wait a little bit, see all your cooldowns come back, and then you go into a prep room, push all your buffs, and then go in and then just do as much damage as you can in 2 minutes. And then based on the ranking of everyone, of all the guilds that exist, it determines where, what kind of amount of skill points you get for that week. And then those are the skills that go into the noblesse skill points. Start of the next week, your guild determines where the points go, and then you can use them again for that week.
I see. Okay, cool. That explains that then.
Yeah, just make sure that you know what the rules are. Like, apparently the rules for your guild are not very stringent. Some guilds that are trying to aim for higher skill points might have something like you have to, get at least 200 points in the flag race, or you have to at least get like 1,000 points in the culvert or something to earn guild skills or something like that. Or if we demote, then everyone who didn't participate gets stripped from guild skills for a week or something. I don't know. People might have different ways of motivating or, punishing people. True. Which is important. You don't want to let it go, because it's a huge part of your damage. And if everyone's kind of like, oh, they're there anyway, and everyone kind of neglects them, then it gets bad really quickly. So you want to, depending on the guilds, you need to keep a lid on it.
Yeah, I definitely do now, for sure. Now that I have more time to actually spend on, specific characters, I can do things like that.
Yeah, and the commitment makes more sense as well, because you don't really feel like you should be working too hard on the guild skills if you're not going to be using them anyway. But then if you're using them, hopefully you feel like you have a little bit more of a duty to actually contribute to their access.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. That's what kind of my mindset was with all this. So, I guess on that note, like, once and it's good that I did do. One of the reasons I wanted to get my Legion out of the way was, by that time I would have approximately 40 characters that I've played all the way up to 200. I kind of know a little bit, about what I like, and so this is gonna help me pick out my main a little bit better now. But once I do pick it out, what do you suggest my first steps be, like in terms of like going after gear or bosses or things like that? Like, say I went for the Iran, or yeah, let's just for simplicity's sake, let's just say I go for the Iran. I start off trying to get its level up a little bit, start some bossing stuff, maybe start getting some gear. What do you think I should start out with?
Well, there's two major paths. One is basically trying to capitalize as much as possible on the progress you've already made to speed up the progress, which would be like exchange carry. Like, hopefully the Kanna can get everything clear. You could like exchange carry maybe through the Kanna. Like, you take someone else on your Kanna to get CRA gear. They take your errand, so you immediately have it, and you can start upgrading it. Yep. Maybe through your guild, you take someone CRA, they take you Helix. You take someone, or you take someone's 5 of their mules through Horntail or something, and then they take you through, I don't know, maybe like Hard Lotus and Hard Damien for a chance of an Absolab item. That's like one major way of progressing, to try to see if you can get those big milestones and kind of like skip as many steps. Or you just go up on the character itself, treat it like a regular old newish character, and you basically look through the dailies command and you start doing that content basically.
Yeah, makes sense then.
Those would be your two major options, I would say.
Okay. All right, cool. I think I got to a good place of where I think I should be going then. So that's most of my questions that I had. Unless you had any other like comments that would help me out, or
yeah,
noticed?
Looking through your equips, there's quite a lot of HP and MP in there, which I guess, and again, depending on what the goal of the character is eventually anyway, that is not like too bad. But like in general for a Kanna, you would eventually want to move into fully intellect, right? The main reason why the scaling now is decent is because a lot of your flames might also have more HP and MP onto it, which again isn't bad, but is not ideal. So the more you try to min max and get damage out of that, the more you move away from all the HP and MP and more into the intellect. But it's a good, like, it's kind of like a crutch, but it's like a very functional one early on, because you just have more outs and everything gives you a little bit more damage. And like, the Hayato shoulder, for example, with 12 int and 18 MP, that's not ideally what you want on there, but considering the whole account, it's probably still pretty good, so it's not necessarily bad. Just wanted to make sure that's, or like the potential on the belt, right? Like, like right now it does do stuff for you, but eventually it's basically like a 0-line item in your...
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, mentally would have to see it as that. But yeah, maybe up until the point where you want to go, it's not that necessary to re-roll it. The second thing is that, so when it comes to flames and the flame scores and everything, I don't know to which extent you're up to speed with that, but that takes into account HP and MP as well, so you can use the calculator for yourself to kind of see where everything is at, and if it is roughly where you want it to be. From more like an objective standpoint than from a current standpoint. Because it can be that in your current situation, it's not too bad, but then you don't really know what you're missing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Makes sense.
So on that note, I would say that the flame of your cup, for example, is quite bad. It can definitely be redone.
Yep.
I don't know if that's the one you're actively working on, just saying.
Yeah, it is actually.
Yeah, okay. No, that's fine.
It got left off at like whatever I had left.
For sure. And then the only other major thing I would say is that when you look at your WSE, right, weapon secondary emblem, I mean, your weapon is where it's gonna be, right? Like a tier 6 magic attack, and it's the fake one, so that's that. But the emblem, ideally in most situations, Kannas will need more IED, and either at least one line of IED and some magic attack, or major magic attack is what you want on an emblem. And that's gonna scale way better than any intellect can.
That's good to know. So try to get IED on it then.
Yeah, I think so. The main thing is that you probably will need some ID now, mainly because you're not like close to the superior Golic set. There's usually like three major things. One is like ID from familiars and from WSE. One is a big Legion block of like that 40% and the link skills that come with it. And one is completing the superior Golic set. And it's one of those where you need at least two at any given time. And then if your class is by itself has lower IED, eventually you will need all three. And Kanna is one of those classes where all three is eventually needed, but that's mostly if you're going for the higher level bosses like Lotus and Damien, because they have even more PDR, right? Like 3-door has 100%, Cvel has 200%, Lotus and Damien have 300%. So
I see.
that IED is going to stay relevant and is going to be a good investment, yeah.
Okay, so it's definitely even more important up there. But like you said, Aran pretty much has like a decent IED.
Yeah,
base.
crazy. Yeah, really high.
Okay.
And
so that maybe I would just need two out of the three.
Yes, and you already have the Legion and the links, so it's you probably temporarily keep a line on WSE, and then once you have enough in your kit and you can check the ID familiar command. There's also like a calculator, so you can kind of see what is your functional ID, right? Like how much is actually working for me. So then you can include like things like boss debuffs or specific skill buffs, for example, and then you can compare that with the IED that's suggested in the progression grid, and then you can see like, do I really need a lot more of it, or is this ballpark of where I want to be? And and then if you do eventually get Helix, then you roll away from the IED and the WSE, and then you go full attack basically.
Okay.
Gotcha. The third thing, though, that I did want to say about the Kanna is that your secondary, there's a lot of missed opportunity there for damage. So if you're eventually going to do Lotus and Damien, you will need a way better secondary.
Secondary, you mean the fan, right? The Haku fan?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so can you explain that again real quick?
Yeah, so the total, when it comes to the potential, the only lines that will apply is Magic Attack and Intellect %.
Yes.
But Magic Attack, of course, way better. So you're essentially going to always be looking for Legendary 2-line Magic Attack at least on there.
2-line Magic Attack, okay.
So that's probably going to want to be a Fafnir. Hopefully you can earn that through doing Cvel, or maybe Absolab as a drop, whatever you decide to do there.
Okay.
The Star Force and the Flame also matter. You have a skill that transfers a percentage of your total magic attack of your fan as a magic attack buff to yourself through the Haku skill. So it only has a percentage efficiency, but it still has some efficiency, and therefore the Flame and the Star Force on the Utgard fan, on the secondary are also important. So if you have Utgard fan backups, if eventually, you want to go into a Fafnir or maybe into Absolab, again, you can use Transfer Hammer there. It's already unique, but, it means it's 100% EPOD, plus the Star Force will get transferred over, which means you don't have to run the risk of possibly booming on the target item. So you could do something like Star Force without safeguarding. On the Utgard fan, you have backups all the way up to 15, for example. Wait for a 5, 10, 15 event, get it to 16 at 100% chance. Transfer it into Fafnir, get that one to 16 at 100% chance. Transfer that into the Abzo, get that one to 16 at 100% chance, and then just safeguard the last star, and boom, you have a 17-star Abzo. That's epic. And then all you have to do is get an OK Flame. But maybe you even did that in advance already, because remember, the Flame doesn't get rolled over, right?
Yep.
And then all you have to do is redo the potential, and boom, you have a great second there.
Oh, see, I didn't even know that Star Force carried over in any sense.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, it's between like building your Legion and your links and knowing how Transfer Hammer works. Like, this is how you fund your entire account in Reboot, because no trade. This is how we have to counter that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think
I just gotta get a little more familiar with the transferring, and if I do that, I think I probably get a lot more damage out of this Kanna even.
Just already just doing CRA and moving your current penciler stuff into the CRA, and then slightly working on like the secondary and redoing the emblem potential. That alone, is going to be. And then in like 3 or 4 practice runs, you're going from like, I don't know what CRA is to like, CRA is my bitch, probably.
Okay, cool. And like, I know that you before you have said that, like, gear tends to be like the cherry on top of the damage.
Mm-hmm.
But realistically, how impactful is having a really good set of gear versus an okay set like maybe I have right now?
Well, your Legion is doing a lot of heavy lifting here. I think the one major thing that is like really impactful is like making sure that the secondary and the emblem, because like WSE is like by far the most important. Everything else is just contributing some HP, some MP, some intellect, some magic attack. Like that's all cool. It's really only once you're getting to 17 star and beyond that everything that you wear kind of becomes like mini weapons. Because if you have like 21 and 22 star stuff, like everything has like 100 weapon attack on it. And now like all of that stuff is really serious. But before that point, everything is like 80 total stat or like 100 total stat. And then your weapon is like the equivalent of like 10,000 or something. Like it's something ridiculous like that just because of all the magic attack, right? And you can look, you can use the flame score calculator if you want to, but like the weapon has 643 magic attack. And around this stage, every magic attack is worth around 4 stats. So just the magic attack by itself is like 2.6k stat worth.
Oh, jeez. Wow.
Just the magic attack on that. And then adding the boss damage, the critical rate, the damage, the IED, the boss damage on itself, like all of that is just a huge chunk. So as long as your WSE is an okay, and you have your Legion and your Links, which helps your critical rate, your critical damage, your IED, your boss damage, if those are in place, that's like 90% of the fight. And then all of your other equips and everything is like the last 10% basically.
Cool. That sounds like a deal to me. I think I got plenty to work on that.
Yeah, you've got some homework to do, but I think with some short-term reinvestment, especially like if the emblem and the secondary get a little bit better, but as long as you have like a plan for the secondary, that's not even the most important thing, but the emblem, some ID, some magic attack, and making sure that you have like the right links on and just practicing CRA. Moving into the CRA pieces, you're already going to see a huge difference. And then you can do HMAG, then you can get a Tyrant Cape, you know, and then the balls just starts rolling. And yeah, just check the dailies. Yeah, check the dailies command, look at what is the next one on the list. And it's very close if you're in game and you use the guide and you go to boss content and you scroll up here. It's very similar to this. It's like, what is the next one on the list, basically? Like, what is the next step? What is the next thing that's achievable for me, you know?
I haven't even seen that. That's the Maple guide?
Yeah.
It's the boss content. Okay.
yeah. It's very similar, except like Gollux is like only in here once, because the Gollux is like considered one boss. But of course, Gollux is 4 bosses, so I have those. I have it here in like one tab, of course, as well. But it's got like the different levels of. Where is it? Here, Gollux. Yeah. Like when can you do easy, normal, hard, hell? You know, like what is realistic there? Because you can't just put them in like, oh, just go do hell Gollux at level 180, bro. Like no, that's not.
No, thanks.
That's not gonna happen. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'll take a look at that too.
Yeah, they've got some arbitrary star system here where it's like 5 bronze stars and it goes to silver stars and then suddenly they go into 5 gold stars. So that's it's a little bit interesting, but
yeah, it's a weird rating system. Isn't the guide gonna change anyway during Destiny?
Yeah, there's gonna be huge changes. I think there's still gonna be a boss tab to it that's probably similar to this, but the major change is just like the level content like this. And there's going to be like a bunch of maps that you can select, that you can lock and teleport to freely as a new player, so that you won't be as reliant on the teleport rock and all that kind of stuff. So,
cool, awesome. All right, well, last question.
Yes.
Anything that you think I should be aware of, besides the terror burns and everything like that, for the new Destiny patch? I know some basic stuff from it, but I didn't know if there was something that I was like really missing that might help my account out.
Okay, let's see. Let's go through
unless you're gonna drop, if you're gonna drop a video soon, just detailing everything, I can just wait.
Yeah, I have to.
That too.
Oh my god, there's so many things. But there's just a lot of stuff. I think the main thing is the Kishin change and like the transfer to boss mules as like the way of funding your whole account for people who want to play more. There's a lot of the big event rings, so kind of have a plan on where you're going to be taking those.
Yep. Definitely have to get them for the new characters. Yeah.
Well, Kishin change and the fact that they have to rely on totems, so making sure that your totem income is set and that you have your reward points to back that up.
I've just started using totems, and I'm like, why haven't I been using these?
Oh yeah, I guess the fact that the Star Force cost, right, is going to be caught by 20%. So any major Star Force thing you want to do, you want to hold that until after the update. Then. Oh yeah, this is what the guide is going to look like, basically.
Oh okay, well that looks a little better.
Yeah, I think one of this. Yeah, this is boss. Is what this says here. Yeah.
Cool.
Prequest faster in new areas, symbols cheaper, new equips. There's going to be some equips that might contend with the Sweetwater stuff, but you know they're going to be rarer to get, so just getting it isn't, you know this at this point. When people say best in slot, I always get a little bit hesitant because yeah, sure, an equip can be best in slot, but no equip is best in slot just by virtue of existing. It's always by how it's upgraded and what other pieces it's working together with. That's what makes something best in slot.
Yep.
So yeah, just in general being cognizant of that. New bosses, Easy Will, normal Varicilla, normal Saren. Easy Will might come into play for you to like learn the mechanics at a
for sure
lower level. Practice for Black Mage. Link skill presets might be nice, but again, that's not like something game changing. Skill timers is really nice. These are all the extra benefits.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Skill rework. The stance, right? So in Maple Sea, they lost the Mihai Link skill, or the Mihai Link skill changed, but they didn't give the skill rework yet to the Kanna, so they're for like a month they don't have any knockback resistance.
Oh Jesus!
Which is great planning on their part.
Wait, so what is changing for that in our server? I know, are they actually getting rid of that skill then?
So Mihal is changing to an temporary elemental resistance skill instead.
Okay.
And everyone is going to have 100% stance passively in their kit.
Oh, that's awesome.
But yeah, we don't know for the non-KMS classes, we don't know how they're going to change yet. So for Mihal, for Kanna, Hayato, Jet, and Beastamer, we don't know yet what they're getting. So.
Okay, I see. And then normal damage instead of knockback, which is nice for mobbing.
Yep. But again, it's mostly for 8k Legion people, so for you it'll be a change, but people who are like 6k or 6.5k, it doesn't really matter much because they can't fill that grid anyway.
Oh yeah, true.
New warrior rewards, new boss, the level 250 plus set that you're gonna get at like level 285 or something, so that's also far away for you. Well, there's even more stuff, level potion selector and stuff with Spiegelman, Starlight, even more rewards. It's like a second battle pass almost, but now that one that's not behind a paywall. Mega Burnator from Fairy Bros, but that's useless for you because you have 8k Legion. Maybe a Vec Pet, maybe.
Okay, yeah. What happened to the Vec Pets? I thought we got a Vet Pet, but then
2 weeks. It was available for 2 weeks in the shop temporarily.
Oh, so it was limited. Okay, I missed out on that one.
Yep.
It was like $100, right?
Yep, 100 NX. You could apply the the reward point discount, and then it was only 70. But yeah,
wow.
Okay, I had just enough reward points to buy 2 of them, like 60k reward points. Finally put to good use.
Damn. Okay. All right. So, but do you think it's gonna come back at some point?
Most likely, yeah. Most likely.
Okay.
People think around Destiny because Destiny in Korea had a different set of Vec Pets, and they're hoping that set of Vec Pets will make its appearance because some people like the looks better.
Yep, gotcha. Cool.
And then maybe a Shining Star Force event, but that's the major thing that everyone is talking about, right? Like 30% off and 5/10/15 at the same time. If that happens, plus the 20% discount we're already getting, then that's where you want to be spending all your money.
Yeah, I should probably start saving up now then.
Yeah. I would say the only thing you want to invest in here is in the emblem and the secondary, and other than that, you're just saving everything up. Yeah.
Yep. Just to make the biggest gains out of the quickest things. Yep.
Exactly.
Cool. All right.
Okay.
Well, I think that's it for me, man. That was very helpful. A lot of information.
Yeah, you're very welcome. If you do look through the commands and you still have additional questions, just let me know in chat. I'll always be here, so willing to help.
Sounds good. Yeah. Appreciate it. Hopefully next time you see me, I'll have a main, so that'll be nice.
Yeah. It was a solid Kanna who can destroy everything. You have a main Kanna who's supporting the whole account even more by getting equips on everything.
Yep, that's the plan. So, all right, I get to start playing the game now. Finally.
Yes,
so.
finally. Chapter 2, Chapter 1 Legion, Chapter 2 the game.
Chapter 2. Yeah. But all right, well, thank you so much again. I'll be talking to you soon. Have a good rest of your day, man.
Yes, you too. Enjoy. Good luck.
Thanks. Yep. Bye.
Bye. All right. Cool. So if you are in a similar situation, or you were helped by a few insights in this video, I'm glad. And if you weren't, then maybe the next one will help you out. So check out the next video. If you want one of these sessions as well, check out the description of the video and you will see how you can get in contact with me and have one of these. If you want to win, or chance to win, a free session, make sure you leave a comment saying that you would like to win with your Discord name, and I will draw 2 winners at the end of the month, which is coming up very, very soon. So make sure you don't miss out on that opportunity. Other than that, if you need any of the resources, they're all available in the Twitch chat. So twitch.tv/Scardor. You can use !, whatever. If you use ! commands, you get the whole list that has access to all of the commands, which is probably a little bit overwhelming and a little bit much. But some of these are just kind of like joke commands that people requested over the years, and some of those are really important ones, but you see them highlighted with the appropriate colors. With all that, I thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video, or I'll see you live on stream. I stream every day. See you then.